Film collaborations between Korean and Southeast Asian countries have been gaining momentum recently. Southeast Asia has long been a region where many Korean film remakes were produced. Now, this trend is expanding beyond remakes to include cooperation with Korea from the planning to production stages. We'll discuss the significance of this shift with Jae Soh, professor and filmmaker at Seoul Institute of the Arts. Welcome back, Professor Soh.
Hi,
Nice to be back.
All right, so let's talk about the recent Korean-Vietnamese co-production film Leaving Mom. In Korean, it's 엄마를 버리러 갑니다. And it has achieved significant box office success in Vietnam. And how has the response been in Korea so far? And also, what kind of movie is this and why is it receiving this attention?
Well, in Korea, it's gotten critical acclaim, but it hasn't really done that well as much as Vietnam in the box office. But in Vietnam, it's considered like one of the highest grossing movies. I think the first day of its release, they made so much money, it made back the production costs of the movie.
Wow.
But as you mentioned, it's over 2 million, audience members. And it's a story about a street barber played by Jung Il-woo, who is I guess a half Korean, half Vietnamese. His mother has Alzheimer's. And so basically it's a story about his struggles to try to take care of her. And then she's always wanting to go back to Korea, so he takes her back to Korea and basically wants to leave her with a half-brother that he's never met. So that's kind of a sad, real story. Basically, I think it's about two nations like Korea and Vietnam, which have a past from like the U.S.-Vietnam War and things like that. But I think what's interesting about the movie is that it's a co-production that they've been working on for 3 years. It's directed by Mo Hong-jin, and it's his debut feature that he wrote a screenplay for. And it has a Korean actor and also a lot of Vietnamese actors, Duong Chun and then Hong Da, who plays the mother. And so what people have been really amazed by is just, basically you're starting out of Vietnam, so you get that milieu, and then you go to Korea. And I think it's just the sort of the heartfelt story about, loss of family, also generational sort of pain. And so I think the acting and just the fact that it's kind of new to have these two cultures happening in one story. And it was developed together. It wasn't like one company wanting to do it, but it was a co-production from the beginning of the production.
Right, I found it interesting that it's not just a co-production, but really that the story itself involves both countries and the setting itself as well.
I just watched the trailer, and just by watching the trailer, it's like I was tearing up.
It made you cry again, just like the movie,
yes.
Getting married.
So if I'm going to go watch it in the theaters, I have to make sure to bring a box of tissues for sure. And another Korea-Vietnam co-production is a movie that I actually covered last week in K-Enter. It's Love Barista starring Lee Kwang-soo. And what I really love about it is I watched the trailer and I can really see his real characteristic in the film. So I'm really interested to see how different he is in real life and in the film as well. So what kind of film is this and what kind of response can we expect from the viewers?
Well, it just opened on the 19th, so the scores aren't that great on it, but it's directed by director Kim Sung-hoon, who did a Confidential Assignment, which is a big box office hit. And the previous movie he did was Killing Romance in 2023. It was also a romantic comedy. So this one's about Lee Kwang-soo plays sort of a star that he's worried about his career, and he goes to Vietnam. Of course, like he loses his way there, and then they meet up with a local Vietnamese girl, and you have the kind of typical romance happening there. So I think what's interesting about the movie is basically the depiction of Ho Chi Minh City in the movie. So it's kind of unusual that you have a Korean person that's kind of famous. I think he's famous or maybe infamous in Korea, but I think in the movie it kind of works with his character. And I heard that Lee Kwang-soo really liked playing this role because he really understood what it's like to be sort of in that position where you're a famous star, you go to a foreign country, nobody knows you. So that sort of irony happening. And also Hwang Ha, who plays the love interest, is just amazing as an actress. I happened to see this in a festival, and basically I thought the movie was really refreshing. And the director is somebody that actually worked at the broadcast stations doing dramas. So it has that kind of like drama style romantic comedy, which nowadays it's really hard to find. So I really like the movie, and I hope a lot of people go see, you know, this movie for sure.
I'll put that on my to-watch list. And now Southeast Asia has actually always been a vibrant market for K-content consumption. Now recently it's rapidly expanding into full-fledged collaborations with Korea, so from planning to production. So why are we seeing this strong momentum right now?
Well, I think it's a momentum that's all over the world, not just in Southeast Asia, you know, because of Parasite, Squid Game, K-pop Demon Hunters. As you know, the Hallyu, the Korean wave is now, it's been actually in much more receptive in Southeast Asia and Asia in general than it did, you know, across to the West. But I think that's definitely an influence. And also government policies. You know, we have ASEAN where members, you know, nations like Vietnam and Thailand, Philippines, we're all part of the same sort of collaborations where we could do co-productions where there's a lot of sort of rules or laws that are relaxed towards film production and also doing co-work. So I think I see this as a very healthy thing because I think, you know, although it's really cool to have a hit across the world globally, I always think our best friends are around us, you know, including East Asia, you know, north of us, China as well. So I think Southeast Asia is definitely like a fertile market, huge population, lots of people that love Korean content. So I see more collaborations between a lot of countries in Southeast Asia for sure.
And another genre that we see as a collaboration is horror and thriller projects with Thailand and Vietnam as well. So how do you anticipate this kind of fusion with K-horror?
Well, when you mention horror films, if you look at Netflix, there's a whole section on Southeast Asian horror. So it's mostly Thai and Vietnamese horror. But what's kind of cool about these movies are usually it's about ghosts. It's about sort of taboo subjects. It's about sort of the rural and urban myths that happen in Southeast Asia. And they're really scary. I don't know if you've seen these movies. Like in Vietnam, there's a movie called The Corpse and Ancestral House. And then there's a movie in 2007 that was called Moi, I guess, the Portrait, and this was kind of one of the first Korean co-productions. And in Vietnam, we have Ghosts and Shutter, Nan Nak, Pimak, and also another Korean co-production called The Medium that came out as well. So these countries are very rich in the tradition of horror, and I think Korean horror is up there too. So I think the collaboration between the two was inevitable to happen, for sure.
And actually, these collaborations between Korean and other Asian countries are not new. It's been going on. So what is the most significant difference between past collaboration attempts and the current ones that's going on right now?
Well, past collaborations have mostly been, I wouldn't say like co-productions. It would be like the movie Medium by Na Hang-jin. He actually, you know, it's a Korean movie, but he had a Vietnamese director, a famous director, direct the movie. So it was really it was generated by Korea itself and not so much as a collaboration. And there have been sort of productions like this in the past where a Korean director would go over there to make a movie and they've found it like censorship issues and a lot of things like that. So I think now the trend is changing where both countries are now sort of fully collaborating together from the starting, you know, so like by Barista or, you know, Leaving Mom. These are movies that basically from the inception of the movie to the final, you know, production and the end results of the distribution are being done together by the two countries partnering up. Yeah.
And Professor Soh, Korea and Southeast Asia have different cultures. They probably also have different production methods. So are there any difficulties that need to be overcome when having these joint projects, or is there actually more synergy because of these differences? And one more question adding up to that, what is different when compared to the collaboration Korea has with US or European countries when compared to Southeast Asian nations?
Well, when it comes to production, I have to say, because I teach film at a university, I studied film in the US. So, you know, basically we're teaching sort of Hollywood-style production techniques in Korea. But Korea traditionally has sort of the production working methods are Japanese, because our cinema started basically, you know, in 1900s under Japanese occupation. So we have both American and Japanese sort of style of filmmaking. I would say Vietnam has sort of like influenced more by like French production because it was a colony of the French at one point. And Thailand has a lot of British sort of influences. So the differences in styles are definitely there. But what I found it's interesting is, but still, even though I've actually, hosted students from America to make films with Korean students, but the same thing must happen in the professional realm as well. It's like there's a camaraderie between Asians, and I think our cultures, even though, we consume a lot of American sort of, content, I think at the same time, I don't know if you know, like Vietnamese people are very Confucius societies, just like Korea is. So our value system is very similar. So even though our production methods are different, I think the sort of the difficulties are quickly done when you're making a movie because you have a purpose. You have to try to do this as cheaply and quickly as possible. And when you make a movie in Southeast Asia, actually it's an advantage to do that, for sure.
Oh, I see. And I'm sure when it comes to these collaborations between countries, there are going to be pros and cons. So what are some of the risks or key points that kind of happen within the actual production process?
Well, the first thing I want to mention is just the actual collaboration in terms of money. In past with countries I'm not going to mention, where the money have exchanged hands, but the Korean producer really didn't get the full profit of it, things like that. So you have to really have those risks kind of taken care of before you get it. But now it seems like because we have ASEAN and all these different policies in place where the government's overseeing that, less of that. But I think the advantage I told you was about like basically in Vietnam or Thailand, you can actually shoot longer hours than Korea. Right now, by Korean law, you can only shoot 12 hours a day with an hour for lunch or something like that. And the other countries don't have those rules. So basically, productions are going over time. People are shooting like close to like 17, 18 hours a day. So there's the fatigue factor that we used to have in Korea as well. So you have that. So it's good for producers, but at the same time, the risk is there for, the actors get tired. There could be accidents. Also, if there's stunts, there are things like that basically, if you don't do it correctly, those problems could actually like hamper the production more than help it. Yeah.
And finally, Professor Soh, which other Southeast Asian country would you want to see Korea work with, and on what kind of film?
Well, Vietnam and Thailand, we're really like on the forefront of like doing a lot of collaborations. I would say, it's one of my favorite countries, so Indonesia or Malaysia. I think those two countries are similar in the sense that they're mostly Muslim countries, so in that way, they differ with us. But at the same time, there's a population of Indonesia is like 278 million people. And when I would go to the Busan Fantastic Film Festival, I'd meet some of the filmmakers, and they told me that basically they love Korean cinema, they love K-pop, K-dramas. Korean content is consumed very, by the masses in Indonesia. So I think we have to start making movies there and sort of collaborating with the talent there. And the gentleman that I met at PFAN was actually a famous actor from Indonesia. He spoke perfect English. And he was saying that, the cost of making a feature is so small compared to what it is in Korea. So I think it should attract a lot of producers from Korea. So I'm hoping that those are the sort of the countries that we'll do more collaborations with in the future.
Indonesia and Malaysia. And I think, if I'm correct, Indonesia in recent studies was actually the country that consumed the most of K content. So I guess it makes sense. And yes, thank you very much, Professor Soh, as always, for your insights, and have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. And thank you, Bella, as always. We're going to see you here back next week.
Yes, I'll see you back next week.